The Neil Prendeville Show.
With Tesco. Save time and shop online. Simply log on to tesco.ie.
And we've got Eoghan Corry on line one. He's a travel expert. Eoghan, thanks for holding, and I know you're under pressure for time. We're here to speak about the green list. Some dithering has been accused or has been stated, and some confusion between the parties, some loggerhead issues between the parties, but we have a green list. The travel list has, I think, already been merrily ignored. So this list is so small, it's probably going to continue to be ignored. Is that correct?
It's a great morning if you've got a yacht, Mick. You've got sort of Monaco and Gibraltar and Malta and places like that. Let me stop
you there, Eoghan, as a travel expert. How do I get to Monaco without a yacht?
There isn't any. At least Gibraltar is an airport. We don't have flights from Ireland, but you're going to end up with this situation where France is not on the list. Monaco is, and it doesn't stop there. I mean, the madness that's only the beginning of the madness. We have 15 countries on this green list, and it's very close to what NFIP said. Only countries with lower rates than Ireland. So there's a couple of big issues which have been pointed out already, and this is what's causing the fractures within parties and even within cabinet that you referred to in your intro. The list will change. Like Italy and Greece would not have been on that list for last Friday. So how does one plan a schedule? How does one plan travel? How does one plan a holiday? 4 of those countries don't have flights from Ireland. The ones that do have flights, they're irrelevant. If there are 120 flights arriving in Ireland today, 9 of them are from green list countries. People are flying away to Spain and Portugal and places like that as if this green list didn't exist, because they've been talking about this since the end of May. European Union drew up their protocols at the end of May. They announced the opening of borders on June the 15th. And anybody making a decision would probably follow the European norm, because they were getting the messages from the countries. And Ryanair is very heavily criticised for putting all these ads up saying, you can fly away. But they told everyone 6 weeks in advance, we're going to start on July the 1st. Give us the safety protocols and we'll adhere to them. And they did, because they were given on June the 12th, the European air safety, and the countries all gave them the green light. And like a teenager has been asked to do the wash-up, these guys finally got to do it and started dropping all the dishes. That's what happened last night.
The NFIT list seemed to be objected to by Leo Varadkar, and there were other objections as well. Are we assuming here that this green list was cobbled together quickly and, kind of an organic starting point, we'll add to it later?
My feeling is that Cabinet agreed to implement it, to add to it later. My feeling is that it was the opposite of being cobbled together quickly. The government went to NFIT and said, give us the list of countries, and they came back with 6 countries or 7 countries on it, which was what would have happened on June 20th. Then on July the 6th, we were supposed to get it. The Cabinet balked again. It's a difficult decision for a politician to say, let's restart, let's reconnect with the rest of the world, when we had the sort of commentary and background that all travel out of the country and all travel into the country isn't good. And travel, let's face it, it dominated a lot of the NFIT press conferences, and it led to that huge narrative on social media about American tourists. We've 26,000 cases of COVID. We haven't had one from an American tourist. So in that environment, a politician making a decision to let's let the drawbridge back down again and start, reopening travel, it's going to face some sort of criticism. But what made it easy for them was that the reconnection was done anyway. There are now about 12,000 people a day going through Dublin Airport. It would be over 100,000 in a normal year. Most people are waiting for 2 things. They're waiting for words that it won't be against public policy. Most people don't want to go against public policy. And the second thing, they want to know how safe it is. And all of those fears have to be overcome. But in the meantime, we have 200,000 jobs in our inbound tourist industry at stake. And it's like It's like we're erecting extra hurdles. There are enough hurdles getting travel restarted, getting tourism restarted, without putting up a few of our own, Mick.
But let's look at the contradictions, okay? If I'm to come from, let's say, Gibraltar to Ireland, I can take a flight from Gibraltar, but I'll be going through a red list country, albeit through its airport. But in that airport, there could be people from very, very dodgy COVID areas. Now, that's case in point. That's allowed. But let's say I'm coming from Monaco.
Into London.
Yeah, but let's say coming from Monaco. Probably the easiest way to get to Ireland would be to take a train along the south coast through Capdal, through Bolio and into Nice International Airport and fly into Cork or Dublin. But
that's it.
But France is not on the green list.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Nice is the way into Monaco. There's no airport there. Gibraltar has an airport. You can fly to London. You're going through red list countries. Greenland. Like, you can imagine who even thought of putting Greenland on the list. You might as well put Antarctica. There's no cases of COVID in Antarctica. You might as well put Antarctica on the list. This is so irrelevant to what's going on the ground, would be the normal phrase, but in the air in this case, that it's like it's going to expose the whole process to ridicule. And if Italy, let's say this was last Friday, Italy and Greece were not in there. I said it's about 9% of our aviation connectivity. Italy's 5.7% of that. Greece is another 1%. So you could end up we would have ended up with a situation where less than 3% of our connectivity and our trading with the rest of the world, because there's a key. Business has to be done. There are machines to be serviced in huge plants in Ireland that the engineers are not allowed in to service, or they won't come in because of the 14-day quarantine. All of that trading with the rest of the world is not being done. Mm-hmm. And if it's being done in a sort of a piecemeal Skype, Zoom basis, but it has to resume at some stage. And at some stage, somebody has got to say, we've reached a level where the threat to our society is reduced enough for us to move and start building up again. Because we're not the only country who made sacrifices, Mick. Every country in Europe is looking at reopening the borders and saying, "Oh, I don't want the Swedes in. Look at their rate." They're sort of saying, "Let's measure it and let's see if it brings the cases up, and then we close the borders."
But the Swedes are going to fly in anyway. Anyone's going to fly anywhere anyway if they can connect through any other country, and that country may be green listed, and they're coming from a red list country.
It works on a sort of a devil may care. I don't really worry about travel insurance, all of that. But when it comes to business, they can't operate like that. And at one level, we're doing exactly what the NFIT set out at the beginning not to do. They wanted people to go to particular countries or to come from particular countries, but by not issuing any list of countries or issuing a laughable list, is what they did overnight. They've actually just left it to people to make their own decisions. And they've done something worse. They've done the key travel that we need, those business, those service, those engineers, all of those who won't travel without proper insurance and within public policy. We've left them without travelling. It's like the worst case scenario in every way. The one upside of it is that level 2 travel insurance, level 2 warning, which is proceed with caution, that applies now to the 15 countries, and that means you are insured. But for significant Mediterranean destinations, that leaves us with 4, Greece, Italy, Malta and Cyprus, and with significant trading destinations, that really only leaves us with Norway and the 3 Baltic states, very, very small for trading. And Italy, of course, it's about 3% of our international trade.
So for those who will take their, the regular destinations for holidays, and I mean, the south of Spain, Canary Islands,
Spain and Portugal. Yeah.
And coming back, having to locate or use the locator form, which I believe is going online, and now we'll have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. Can that be enforced? Can it be policed? Will it even be respected?
I've done it, Mick. I did the turnaround flight to Malta. Malta is the safest country in Europe, according to all the lists. And that's the first flight I did on July the 1st when Ryanair reopened. And I've just done my quarantine. You fill out the locator form. There's no mention of quarantine in the airport, by the way. There's a mention of the locator form. You hand it in with your passport. And then you go home and you self-isolate. Didn't make that much difference from what I was doing already for me.
Anybody check up on your own?
Nobody phoned. Phoned. Nobody.
Not even phoned.
It may be unfair to them. They would have looked at Malta and said,
"Yeah, maybe,
a problem." Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't have isolated at all now that it's on the green list.
Well, you see, the thing is that is anyone looking at the form? You see, the forms were brought in when we 12 flights a day through the airport. We now have 80 to 100. And I suspect the personnel, paper forms are a nightmare anyway. So I don't think the personnel were there to actually look at these forms. They could all be sitting in a big box in a dark room. And what complicates that theory further, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theory sort of person, but the airlines offered at a Department of Transport meeting to supply the information. They say, we've everything we need. We have the phone numbers, the emails. We know what row they were sitting in. We'll give you this information. And the Department of Health said they couldn't handle it. They didn't have the systems to handle it.
Wow. So
we ended up with this paper-filling exercise, which, presumably they take a sample of and telephone the number on the form and ask them when are they self-isolating.
I'd venture on if they can't handle it electronically, they're not going to handle it with pairs of eyes.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you, Eoghan, probably, and I'm trying to be corrected here, probably the most travel that happens is between us and our nearest neighbour.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
And a lot of people, and we had some of them on with holiday homes yesterday, some of them staying here self-quarantining. Some need to go home to visit family members. Some need to go home to check on property. Some need to go home for essential work reasons. Where do we draw the line, or where should they draw the line?
They are doing it anyway. It's like if you have rules that make sense, like a speed limit around a town or a school or whatever, everybody sort of says, okay, that makes sense. Let's adhere to it. Around the world, there are strange rules that people bring in which are notional that most people disregard because they're unenforceable or they don't make sense. And that is really what's happening here. The nation has abandoned the notion of a green list. And most people are not doing trivial travel and they're not going to areas with high infection. So what we have is a set of rules which bears no resemblance to what's happening on the ground or, as I say, in the air.
Yeah, some more common sense needs to prevail. I know you're under pressure for time, on one last question. Yeah. The COVID-19 safeguards released yesterday by the Department of Transport were issued by the EASA 4 weeks ago. Why did it take the Department of Transport a month to cut and paste them?
They just cut and pasted them and put them in and put the links for the Irish in. It was probably waiting to be signed off. Stacks of documents on ministers' desks at a time of change of government could be the cause of this, but it was there when the previous government was there, so the previous minister could have signed it off very easily. And they've caused huge problems because I have people trying them very close to dealing with airlines all the time, and the Ryanair and Aer Lingus people telling me we have to go by the European guidelines. Every other country has a national guideline. I've just been talking to Air France CEO Ben Smith just before he came on air, and every other country has a national guideline which was implemented from taking most of the European one. We did nothing. There was a vacuum. And the Irish Airlines, which is a considerable industry, were left trying to guess what are the Irish going to do? In the end, they just cut and pasted it, which is what
maybe it was the handover of departments as the government changed over or something. But the mind boggles. Eoghan Corry, travel expert, thank you very much for coming on. Thanks, cheers, bye-bye. We'll take one quick call before we go to a break, and that's Dan in Brittany. Good morning to you, Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hello there.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm very good, thanks, and you?
I'm good. Now, you're in Brittany and in France on holidays. Lovely part of the world. They love the Irish there, don't they?
They do indeed. They're like ourselves, really. Very friendly people.
Mm-hmm. You're going there a lot. Do you go on the Pont of Vaughan, or do you fly over there, or what?
No, we go on the ferry from Cork. We used to sail from Rosslare previously until Irish ferries stopped sailing to. We come into Roscoff because it's easier for us to where we're going. So now we sail from Cork. It's a little bit more expensive than it would have been from Rosslare initially, but I suppose because the trip back home afterwards, it's a shorter distance, so one compensates for the other,
Sure. So you're hoping you don't have to quarantine when you get home, even though France is now not on the green list?
Well, that's correct. I mean, I've been listening to the news online over here. I've been listening to Red FM quite a bit online as well. And just listening to our Taoiseach, who came back from Brussels. Surely Brussels is not on the list, so that man should self-isolate for 14 days.
Yes, I think very good question, a very good point. That begs the question, I suppose. If essential travel is undertaken, even though it's at a high level of trying to negotiate a 1.82 trillion euro deal, should you still self-isolate, or should you be considered exempt?
But are they saying that anybody that travels on essential travel cannot contact the coronavirus?
There you go. Well, maybe he had a cheese sandwich in his hand.
I'm not too sure, but I think basically what they're saying it's one law for themselves and a different law for everybody else. I have no problem with self-isolating when I come back. I'm self-employed and I'm unfortunately out of work for the time being. But having said that, I mean, if that country is not on the list, then our Taoiseach should self-isolate. That's what they're saying.
Well, let me put it to the Minister for Foreign Affairs after 11 o'clock news. But it's a fair point, Dan. If you have to quarantine when you come back, will you undertake to do it efficiently and honestly?
I will. I definitely will. And as I said to your researcher online there, where we are here in France, people wear masks all the time, way more so than at home. Since Monday, actually, of this week, it is now compulsory to wear a mask going into any building and also any outdoor market where a crowd may be congregated. You must wear a mask. The only difference would be that their distancing is 1 metre rather than 2.
Yeah, well, the 1 metre distancing, I think is probably going to happen here before the general pubs reopen, because a lot of them are untenable at 2 metres. And I think people would adhere to a lot more mask policy if it was 1 metre. They could operate more like a normal society.
Exactly. We're here just over a week, and the first couple of days it felt a little bit strange putting on a mask all the time, but now we're so used to it. You just carry a mask around with you and you put it on when the need arises, and everybody else is doing the same, so it doesn't really make any difference. Mm-hmm.
So
it becomes the norm, basically. So holiday-wise, I suppose numbers are down a bit compared to other years that we've been coming here. I'd imagine that we're on a campsite. We have a caravan here. I'd imagine probably about 50% capacity. And the same on other businesses and things around the place. Having said that, there are quite a few tourists in the area, Dutch, Swiss, Belgian, travelling around, and they all seem to be adhering to wearing the masks, and there doesn't seem to be any problem whatsoever.
Final question for you, Dan. Do you think we're moving to a society where a lot more relaxation will happen as regards people's freedoms and availability to travel, but personal responsibility and adherence to proper hygiene and minding yourself will be what beats the virus?
I would think that would be the correct thing to do. I can't even see how, if they keep 2 metre distancing up, how are they going to open schools come September? It would be absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
A lot of I'm from the country in West Cork. A lot of country schools would be quite small schools with maybe large classrooms, large number of kids in the classrooms. They can't work and operate those schools if they have to keep a 2 metre distance. It would be absolutely out of the question.
Yeah. Evan says, I don't see Belgium on the list yet. Taoiseach can travel back from there and speak in the Dáil yesterday and not have to quarantine for 2 weeks, essential travel or not. I thought you still would have to quarantine. So apparently government ministers are exempt from self-isolating. So clearly COVID is clever enough to determine who's a minister and who's not, as well as who has a cheese sandwich. I think the cheese sandwich is I know it's a Michael Healy-Rae thing, but I think it's going to be the metaphor for safety from now on. Maybe he had a cheese sandwich.
I think you could be right.
Dan, what part of Brittany are you in?
I'm in a place called Kibron, which is like a peninsula.
Yes.
It's about an hour's drive from Lorient Airport. We came by ferry, obviously. It's about 2.5 hours from Roscoff Ferry.
Oh, beautiful part of the world.
Driving.
Do you go over that big bridge to get there? That 7th wonder or 8th wonder of the world?
No, we don't have to. I've travelled that bridge, but no, we don't have to go over the big bridge to get there. No, it's a lovely drive down actually to where we're staying. You do it comfortably in 2.5 hours, taking in the scenery and enjoying the sunshine.
I've done it down as far as La Rochelle. It's an amazing road. Even the B roads in France are as good as the A roads here, I think.
Oh, God, yes, definitely. I mean, I carry a little motorcycle with me. I take a van over and bring a little motorcycle, and we tour around a lot of days.
You're an expert now. You're an expert in travel. Thanks a million, Dan. Stay safe.
You're welcome. No bother. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. We've lots of texts and comments on COVID-19 and the government, actually. You can text us now.